It's time to pick a side. The border war is on the air with BG and Tan.
Hey gang, welcome into the border war. This is episode 113. It's BG and TanMan's NFL draft recap. A reminder, you can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at the border war. And from that page, you will see the Twitter accounts for both BG and myself at the top. Good to be back in studio, BG. How's your week, man? How's your week been?
It's okay, but I went back and listened just to see what I sounded like on the phone, and that did not come off well.
Well,
I sounded like crap.
Well, we are amateurs.
Yeah, in the true sense of the word.
The NFL draft was this weekend, BG. What did they pack into Nashville? What did they say, like 600,000 people?
It looked like a presidential inauguration. I mean, it was like...
Which one?
As soon as I said it's the one that people went to. I'll just leave it at that. I thought that it looked to me like that town was custom made for something like that. I mean, it looked like an outdoor mall of bars and restaurants for like 8 blocks in a straight line right up to the stage. I mean,
I've never been to Nashville, but I've heard like it's a fun town to go hang out.
I've driven through it. Indianapolis is the place I've hung out a few times. It's this kind of fun like that. Never can find the basketball arena, but there are a lot of bars. I've driven through Nashville on the way to St. Louis, and driven. The interstate goes right beside Titan Stadium there, but I don't know what the downtown area, but it looked really nice on camera.
Unless you were one of the bridesmaid parties. You see that story?
Yeah, stupid. God. I mean, like, look at a calendar. Just look at a calendar. I mean, you got to plan ahead. But I mean, to me, the draft is always a reminder of just how far in front of baseball and basketball the NFL is, man. It is just not a competition. Like, when you just think about it. Think about what the NBA draft is going to be like in a few months, and then the Major League Baseball draft. I mean, like it's just sort of
their draft is.
I mean, the NBA draft, it garners some attention. I'm not trying to just throw it under the table, but it is not an event.
No,
it's not. It is not a thing where people take a week off of work and. I mean,
the NFL has done themselves a favor now too by spreading this thing out over 3 days.
And I thought
kind of string. Yeah, they used to get like 15 picks and 15 minutes between picks in the first round. It's like the first round would go on for like 9 hours.
Yeah, and we don't get to hear the Jets fans boo every pick now because it's not constantly in Radio City Music Hall. And I thought. Mike and not Mike made a good point the other day. I think it was Mike and not Mike Jr. that actually made the point day after, probably Monday morning, that, it's kind of cool now because there are cities that obviously are not going to get a Super Bowl that can get something like this.
Right.
And then it's, and I like that they take it on tour.
I think this is a cool idea.
I did see a weather report that said if they had it in Chicago this year, they couldn't have had it at all. They got like 6 inches of snow.
That's awesome. That's when you have it, man.
Yeah. One would think
have it in the snow.
Yeah, that would be kind of crazy. It sure would.
Going to the NFL, I've gone to a lot of stuff. I mean, I do a pretty good job of checking things off my sports bucket list.
You do.
Going to the NFL draft is one of the things that's on the list. I don't know why.
I think it's unavoidable that it'll show up in Charlotte at some point, or at least Atlanta.
Oh, it'll definitely be in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, you think. Although I'll say this,
but if they're getting Super Bowls, maybe the draft winds up in Charlotte.
But I'm assuming you've been around the area where the Falcon Stadium is, where the Georgia Dome is.
It's been a while, but
there is nothing there.
No,
there is nothing there. There's one wings place right beside Phillips Arena that we go to eat every time we're down there.
They'd have to do it in like Centennial Park.
Yeah, I mean, but even there's no bars. There's nothing there. I'm just saying. But same way with the Panthers. In and around Bank of America Stadium, man, there's nothing.
Well, it doesn't have to be right at the stadium.
There's a Buffalo Wild Wing across the street from the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Hey, let's talk about some winners and losers. Of course, we're going to touch on the Redskins and Cowboys and Panthers, but let's steer away from them for a few minutes. We'll call it outside the box, BG.
Next time you send me notes, though, you need to spell that out.
Well, I was going to say,
you can't throw that
listen,
OOB
you seem
stuff
to be,
at me.
you seem to present yourself as this smart, educated, well-rounded man, and then I send you one acronym, and all of a sudden everything goes to pot.
Oob.
Give me a winner outside of the box. Give me an oob winner, my man.
I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos. I think that, and my loser will be directly related to them. But yeah, I think the Broncos got the best tight end in the draft, Noah Fant. And otherwise, they made themselves stronger up front, got an offensive lineman, got a defensive lineman, and then primarily they got the quarterback they wanted. They gave up nothing to get him, and they got to wait till the second round to get Locke. So I thought it worked out for them.
I'm with you all the way. I love Denver's draft. And,
you don't want to get down into the fifth and sixth rounds to talk about why somebody won the draft.
Well, no.
It's really all about the first three rounds.
Well,
but, yeah, again, they get their guy. They get a great tight end, one of the best receiving tight ends in the draft in Noah Fant. And before they get Locke, even immediately before that, they go ahead and get Dalton Risner on that offensive line, which has been a problem for them for about 5 seasons now. Now, do I think Drew Lock's going to pan out? It's hard. Well, it depends on how much contact he has with John Elway.
Well,
by the way, did you
he's
see
in a good spot.
The picture of Elway from his press conference back in '82 or
no,
whenever it was, man? When I tell you that John Elway on that day, at the moment that picture was taken, was the most annoying human being on the planet. He looked like the whiniest. I don't want to play in Baltimore.
That's pretty much what he said.
Yeah, but the look on his face, it just, anyway.
I've actually got 2, 1.5. One, San Francisco. I thought the Nick Bosa pick at 2 was a no-brainer, but I love what they did in the second round and the third round by adding Deebo Samuel and Jalen Hurd from Baylor to give Jimmy Garoppolo some weapons there. But my big winner in the draft, much the same, for basically the same reasons that you had Denver, I took Jacksonville. They got Josh Allen in the first round, who, why he was still there is a topic we'll discuss, I'm sure, here in a few minutes. But then they turned around in the second round and got a guy in Jawan Taylor that, much like Drew Lock, a lot of the mock drafts had Taylor going into the first round. Some of them even had Taylor going to Jacksonville at 7 in the first round. So they get Allen and they get Jawan Taylor in the second round, a guy that a lot of people were thinking they were going to get anyway. So to add both of those guys, Denver and Jacksonville both, I think we hit the nail on the head that great drafts.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I looked at Jacksonville's draft too, and Jacksonville's had a really, since the Blake Bortles draft, reviews have been pretty good for them, and the same thing for the Broncos. I think last year's draft class, if I recall correctly, was one I strongly considered making my big winner.
Yeah.
So that's 2 years in a row that the Broncos and the Jaguars, I think, have sort of knocked it out of the park.
All right, USA Today has come out. I don't know if you've seen this or not. The 6th absolute worst draft selections from this past NFL draft.
Ooh! I know what they have at number 1, and I'm not even looking.
All right, who they got at number 1?
I'm going to go on a limb and say it's Daniel Jones.
No, I think it's in order. Looks like it's in order by draft position. At the top, they've got your boy. I think you called it.
I did call it.
Cleveland Farrell at number 4. It basically goes on to say that his whole career they passed on Josh Allen, and so Cleveland Farrell was his name was showing up a lot in the 20s. If he doesn't kind of pan out and Josh Allen turns into a stud, Oakland's going to have to answer for that. And at number 6, they've got Daniel Jones from the New York Giants, the first Giant to pop up here. The second one, also to the Giants, Dexter Lawrence at number 17, BG.
And, I've heard a lot of people say that they thought, obviously the Giants signed or draft 3 in the first round and that only the Daniel Jones pick was bad. And don't get me wrong, it's just not a Clemson thing. Dexter Lawrence is going to do a great job of exactly what you would expect him to do. He's not going to show up on the stat sheet. He's a 340-pound nightmare that's going to take up 2 blocks. He's going to let your linebackers do their thing. The reason I think it was a bad pick for the Giants is because that was not an area of need for them. They had young defensive tackles. I can't remember either of their names, but I looked at their roster yesterday, actually, that have been drafted or signed in the past couple of years. Both these guys are under 25 years old. When you're a terrible football team, look, everybody's been there, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's been there with their game controller in their hand, and you're looking at the draft, and some guy pops up that is supposed to be a first-round pick, and it's the third round.
And you take him.
But you take him, or you don't, because it's literally not someone you don't need them at all. And so that, to me, just wasn't a position of need for the Giants in the first round.
I say it talks about Dexter Lawrence, and it goes on to say if they're trying to protect the lead late in the fourth quarter, that Lawrence talks about his pass rushing capabilities got to improve, and that if they're trying to protect the lead in the fourth quarter, that he's going to be off the field. When are they going to be trying to protect the lead in the fourth quarter? They're not going to be leading very much in the fourth quarter.
You can make the argument, though, that he is not a third down.
Well, that's what they're talking
tackle,
about. But like I said again, they're not going to have very many leads in the fourth quarter. Your teams are going to be running the ball against them late in the ball game. Like I said, it's 17. Did you have to take him there? Kind of like the Daniel Jones pick. Did you have to take Daniel Jones at 6? Probably not.
I mean,
but
one of the sort of, I don't know why the Redskins and the Giants would be talking to each other during the draft or believing anything, but to me,
I think the Giants got played on this.
That's what I was about to say. I think, shockingly enough, that Washington, I think they cooked their goose a little bit here. I think they made it. Because who else would they be talking about?
Well,
who else did they think was going to take him?
Well, I was going to say, you had some quarterback-needy teams behind them. You had the Dolphins behind them. You had Cincinnati had been linked to Haskins a little bit. So you had some teams that maybe could have been interested in trading up. I just think the Giants got played in this deal. My loser of the draft, though, BG, is not the Giants and it's not the Raiders. My loser of the draft is the Green Bay Packers. And I'll tell you why. The focal point of the Green Bay Packers team should be who? Should be Aaron Rodgers,
right?
2 first-round picks. They traded up, they didn't trade up, but they took Rashawn Gary at 12 from Michigan. I didn't think he kind of lived up to the hype. I kind of expected more from him in college. And then when you take him at 12 and Christian Wilkins goes right behind him at 13, I think that same thing we talked about with Cleveland Farrell and Josh Allen, Wilkins and him are going to be compared throughout their career. I don't mind the pick, Savage, at 21, but in the second round, they took a center from Mississippi State, Elgton Jenkins. They didn't get Aaron Rodgers any kind of help. They took Sternberger, I think, in the third round, but as far as wide receivers go, in that second round, after they took my man from Mississippi State, you had A.J. Brown from Ole Miss, Mecole Hardman, Arcega Whiteside, Paris Campbell, Andy Isabella, who had 1,700 yards at UMass last year, and then finally DK Metcalf. All those guys at wide receiver went after the Packers pick. I thought they kind of left Aaron Rodgers kind of flailing around in the wind out there. As his receiving core has aged over the years, I don't think they've done a good enough job replacing those guys. And with a guy that is going to get old quickly, I think, up there, I think the Packers missed an opportunity.
You wonder with the new coach coming in if there's still some front office transition and philosophy, how devoted they are to Aaron Rodgers 2 or 3 years from now. And people forget this stuff. I mean, I'm certainly, don't get me wrong, if you haven't realized this yet, I'm not calling you an idiot. I wouldn't do that.
Are you going to pound the table?
I'm not.
And scream and yell?
I'm not. Ironic when the person calling you an idiot and moron is actually the only moron and idiot in the room. But anyway, so I don't even know what my point was. No, just that, and we're going to talk about this with the Redskins here in a minute, and you've had your taste of it in in Dallas as well over the years, but front offices and coaching staffs don't always mesh. And we know that when Aaron Rodgers does fall off the mountain a bit, it'll probably be sudden. The same thing's going to happen with Brady when he's 56. I mean, just because Aaron Rodgers has been Aaron Rodgers doesn't mean this new coaching staff is hitching their horse to him.
First year coach, I think, too, up there.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And so all of that stuff, there are inter-team politics that go on that you see the tip of during the draft, but I think that might be what's going on in Green Bay to a degree.
Yeah.
I think this head coach, I don't even know the guy's name. He looks like he's 12.
Matt LaFleur.
I don't think his success is not going to be based on Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers wins some games the next 3 or 4 years, I don't think he thinks they've got enough to win it all with him at this point. They're clearly sort of setting up the next thing.
I say it kind of feels like they've gone from an Aaron Rodgers central team, and like they're trying to get away from that.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I look at, to me, you got one of the 3 best quarterbacks in football.
Well,
in a shrinking window by the year. You ought to
what
take
do they
a shot.
tell you that the NFL stands for? Not for long.
Yeah,
you better win now.
Yeah, well, BG, your Redskins, I think they got a lot of praise for their draft. I'm interested to hear your take because I've got my take on that draft. I want to hear yours first. How do you think you guys come out this weekend?
Well, let me just throw down the truth of it all. Okay, this draft, all these picks, and we'll talk about a few of them here in a second, but it really just comes down to this. How good of a quarterback do you think Dwayne Haskins is going to be? Okay, so if he ends up being, well, let's just say if he ends up being better than Kirk Cousins, then this was a great draft. If he doesn't, if he's a bust, if he's good enough to make you stay 9-7 for the next 3 or 4 seasons, then it was probably just an okay draft. I don't think you can make the case realistically that the Redskins had a bad draft at all. Whatever happens with Dwayne Haskins, getting Montez Sweat in the first round I thought was a great move. He may be the most talented edge rusher in the draft. Apparently he was misdiagnosed, and only the Redskins weren't bothered by that because people passed on him and passed on him and passed on him.
Heart or something with his heart.
Yeah,
right?
but apparently whatever the diagnosis was determined to not be correct. I don't know. The Redskins doctors were clearly cool with it. They traded up to get him. I think it was really smart to take Terry McLaurin, a guy that Haskins is familiar with. If you're going to take a wide receiver, and they certainly needed one, they get somebody that he's used to throwing the ball to, because I think you're going to see Dwayne Haskins quickly in Washington. I think you might see him not start, I don't know, maybe 4 games, but after, I think that's about the most you're going to see before he's given the reins. Not quite sure about the Bryce Love pick. Their justification was that he was so talented they couldn't pass him up all the way down at 112. I was screaming left guard at that point. Of course, they do it just a few picks later with Wes Martin. All of the offensive linemen they picked, to me, looked like the kind of guys you want.
I say this.
I would probably give the Redskins a B+ to an A-. A lot of that is going to depend on Dwayne Haskins.
Well, I'll give you guys somewhere between a B and a B+. The Haskins pick, I think, was a no-brainer at that point. You guys earlier that day we talked about it over the phone. I think that day, you guys were kind of being linked to Haskins, maybe potentially trading up for him even. You didn't have to do that. Turns out
apparently we just got the Giants on the phone and made them think we were going to trade up to take Daniel Jones, and so we didn't need to.
Hey, you got what's his name up there, Gettleman from the Panthers. You got Gettleman on the phone and just said, "Boo,
Dave Gettleman, this is a first-round quarterback, a quarterback."
But you didn't have to trade up to take Haskins, so I think that made it a no-brainer there. I'm with you. I like the McLaurin pick. Give Haskins somebody he's familiar with. I'm not as high on the Montez Sweat pick as you are, and not to me. A lot of what the NFL draft and any draft really is, it's not that particular player. To me, it's okay. If you took this player, then who did you pass on, right?
Yeah.
And by trading up for Sweat, you gave up a pick that became Greedy Williams. I thought that Greedy Williams is a name we talked about last week, or that I brought up last week, I think.
He was not a guy I was prepared to see drop into the second round.
Right. I think he's somebody that I was linking to you guys.
He had the best suit on of all those guys, too.
That I was linking to you guys as a potential first-round pick. So, Sweat, Greedy Williams, okay. I think he missed out a little bit there. And the same thing with Bryce Love. Look, I don't know why he's kind of fallen off the map. 2 years ago, this guy was the best running back in college football.
You remember, he was my pick for Heisman going into that season.
I know he's coming off an ACL injury, so he's probably not going to play this upcoming year. I wouldn't guess. But a guy you passed on, Riley Ridley from Georgia. You could have had McLaurin and Riley Ridley.
No,
both.
I didn't like the Bryce Love pick.
Wide receivers, one of those spots.
Well, don't forget, we've still got Samaje Perine. We've still got a stable of running backs.
Yeah,
I think this was one of those things where value, that word got thrown in, and it's never been my favorite word.
Wide receivers, one position in the NFL where rookies have a hard time sometimes, and a lot of them, I mean, you see it, a lot of them don't wind up panning out. So I think the more irons you put in the fire, the better chance you have of one of these guys working out, and then you've got a quarterback and a receiver both coming in at the same time, getting on a path together. So I think in hindsight, I think Riley Ridley would have been the pick there.
But you do agree with me in 3 seasons, 4 seasons, if Dwayne Haskins is the best quarterback in the NFC East, and this is an A+ draft, if we're still the 3rd best team in the NFC East, then this is a C draft.
Yeah,
and it's really all about him. Everything else here, and none of these guys are going to win you games without the quarterback.
You're right. This is not the strongest quarterback draft, they say. But again, like I said, Haskins, he fell to you. I mean, you didn't have a choice but to take him at that point.
I agree. And if it doesn't work out, you'll probably have the 15th pick in the draft next year. So, I mean, whatever. I definitely would have – I would have flipped out if we had traded up. And got rid of our second-round pick to get just one pick in the first round. So I was fine with it. I've watched a little film on Haskins with a different guy. It's obviously not John Gruden anymore, but Haskins has a really good, at least, at the college level, what he's looking at. He can break down film. I mean, he seems to understand defenses in football pretty well, not to have played a lot of starting positions. So my hope for him is because he really is the guy. You're not going to run into the issues with him that you ran into with RG3, where you sort of had an undersized quarterback who was constantly out on the wing trying to get to the sidelines. Haskins is a big man.
He's a big fella,
and he's going to stand in the pocket and throw the football. And the fact that he can talk defense gives me a little more because the arm talent's there, right? But arm talent isn't enough in the NFL. You really need to be able to anticipate those defenses. You need to be able to see the holes in the zone. And so I've got faith. But, I mean, and we're going to talk about this a lot more, but me personally, I hope he starts week 1.
I think he will.
We have absolutely nothing to play for this season. Nothing. An outside shot at a wild card, there's no reason not to play him. And I don't know how much of this you want to get into, but you look at Jay Gruden. Well, listen, he has every reason to not start him early on because he's trying to save his job, which is, to me, why Jay Gruden should have already been fired.
I disagree with you. I think he's trying to save his job so you do start him day one. I think you put him out there because...
Well, but he didn't even want to draft him, according to all reports.
Nah.
He wanted to go with Daniel Jones because he thought short-term that Jones would be better and buy him a few years, and then he could draft another quarterback because he knew he wouldn't work out, that Haskins would be a longer project, and he might not have a longer project. So those are just reports that are coming out
there. Moving on to the Carolina Panthers, BG. I'm going to give the Panthers a B- on their draft. I think they picked right after you guys in the first round. They took Brian Burns, the outside linebacker out of Florida State. Probably again one of the better pass rushers.
Because they should have gone with the offensive tackle in the first round.
Well, and that's a need that they addressed in the second round. I think Burns was probably the best pass rusher left on the board at that point. Names that started coming off by then. They trade up to take Greg Little in the second round, and same thing I talked about with you guys and Greedy Williams. Yeah, that pick that trade for Greg Little wound up being Winovich. How you say his name? The long-haired blonde kid from Michigan.
Yeah.
That pick turned into him in the third round.
He's a beast, man.
And, so again, the Will Grier pick, however, in the third round, I've heard a lot of talk radio guys kind of on the fence. Some love it, some don't. I love the Will Grier pick in the third round. He's not somebody that's going to come in and push Cam Newton right away. He may not even be better than the current backup that they have. What's his name? Played at Texas, one of those Texas schools. Anyway, may not even be better than him right now. But to me, what this signals to Cam Newton is you at least tell him, look, we're looking. This guy, he's not going to take your job now. He may not ever take your job. But to me, this puts Cam Newton on the clock just a little bit know that they are looking around now.
And again, I think Ron Rivera's maybe on a little hotter seat than Jay Gruden is. I mean, this really could be his last year in Charlotte, and he needs Cam to play really well because like more so than you guys or the Redskins. I mean, the Panthers are Cam Newton. Like what he's able to do on that field is everything. So I'm with you. I think this Will Grier pick was all about sort of giving Cam a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And again, the guy played at a high level at two different colleges. So, I mean, it's not like he's definitely not going to pan out. But in the third round, no problem at all with that. And a lot of guys had Grier graded out above Daniel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, toss that around in your mind for a minute.
It's Burns, Little, and Will Grier. For the Carolina Panthers. So it's like I said, B-. For the Cowboys, I'm giving the Cowboys a C, BG. There's nothing about this draft whatsoever gets me fired up for football season.
Well, there's a lot of people that have given you guys A's. What is it that you disagree with them about? Because I've seen a lot of folks high on the Cowboys draft, and I'm with you. It's not the sexiest draft I've ever seen, but quality players. I mean, obviously you drafted Amari Cooper in the first round. That's the best way to look at it.
Yeah.
I think he's going to work out.
Something tells me he's okay.
Tristan Hill from Central Florida, which is not in the center of Florida at all, at defensive tackle, good size. I mean,
see, that's where my problem with our draft starts.
Okay,
is with Tristan Hill. We didn't have a pick at all in the first round.
Right.
We didn't have a pick until late at the very back end of the second round, and we come up with a guy who's made all of one more start in college than I did. They said he's made one start at Central Florida. I think he's
but it's all about potential. I mean, you didn't like the Van Der Esch pick last year.
Well, I didn't like
neither one of us did.
Listen, I didn't like the Van Der Esch pick at first, and then a few days later, by the time we got on air talking about it, I'm going, you know what? That was probably the right pick.
I think he might work out too.
Well, look, I keep going back to this. Okay, you take this guy, so who did you pass on? And 3 of the next 5 picks right after us to close the first round, Nasir Adderley, Taylor Rapp from Washington, Juan Thornhill from Virginia, all safeties. They all got drafted, except for Thornhill. Thornhill was about right on, but all 3 of those guys got drafted beyond what their overall rank, according to the ESPN, would be. So they all would have been plus draft picks, in my opinion. I think you get a guy who can come in and play right away, fill a position of great need. For whatever reason, Stephen Jones has said, basically, we don't care about the safety position.
It's amazing.
It blows my mind, but you pass on those guys right after to take a kid who I don't really know how much he's going to impact your football team next year. I will say the one pick I like the offensive line pick.
I was about to say, surely you like Connor McGovern.
I like Connor McGovern in the third round.
You watched his film at all?
No.
He's a nasty kid, man. This guy mauls people.
Well, look, they picked him up in the third round. I saw this number the other day and it blew my mind. The Dallas Cowboys, and I knew we invested heavily in this position. We spend $10 million more overall than the next closest team in the NFL on our offensive line. And you've got Frederick, who's been hurt. how and when he'll come back, I don't know. You've got Tyron Smith, who's been banged up. These guys are starting to command some big salary dollars. Last year they drafted Connor Williams in the second round. This year, Connor McGovern in the third. It signals to me that the Cowboys are kind of starting to wean some of these guys off. Going to try and transition on this offensive line. Great pickup. And the other pick that everybody seems to be pretty high on, Tony Pollard in the fourth round.
See, here's my thing, and this is not an original idea. I've read it in a few places, that it's one of those deals where there were other running backs the Cowboys wanted. Mm-hmm. And they went ahead and took McGovern in the third round, thinking that those guys would still be there in the fourth, and none of them were.
Yeah.
That this guy was actually not that high. Apparently, John Kaminsky or Isaiah Johnson, both of those guys were higher on the draft board, and they both went earlier that same round. So the Cowboys take this guy. They were bound and determined to take a running back, it seems like, in that pick.
Yeah.
But again, and let's just admit this. I mean, GMs need to admit this. A lot of this stuff, there's so many factors that can lead to a player's success or lack thereof in the NFL that it's really difficult to just use these measurables. That's why I'm so big on film. I think, and we talked about this with DK Metcalf.
Like Rasheed Wallace says, ball don't lie.
Yeah, we talked about this with DK Metcalf. If DK Metcalf is actually such a physical freak, then why was his best season 12 touchdowns and 820 yards in a Mississippi offense that threw the ball 17,000 times per game? I mean, he wasn't the number one receiver on his own team. So, again, that's what I look at. But don't be concerned that the kid came from Memphis. I mean, the NFL's full of guys that should have played at bigger schools but didn't.
Well, no, he's going to be a guy that they say he's going to come in. He was a monster in the return game, they say, at Memphis last year. Got some experience at wide receiver. So this seems like it's more of a toy. Maybe replace
a special teams guy.
He's going to play some special teams, return kicks. My guess is he's probably going to replace Tavon Austin, kind of that gadget player. They drafted Mike Weber from Ohio State, a second running back. So now that'll be 3 Ohio State running backs on the team for the Cowboys.
And then
early in the 7th round,
hit 158, the king of pop,
Michael Jackson.
Yeah. I mean, look, though, this.
Well, maybe next year we'll draft Prince.
Well, again, when you're drafting, now anytime I start a Madden league, I always do the whole fantasy draft, right? I don't want any of those bums that play for the Redskins in real life. Now you keep telling me I need to stop playing with the Redskins completely. I need to branch out.
Yeah,
go with the Lions or something like that.
Different.
Yeah, you're probably right. But you always know, man, like late in the game when you can't even remember who you've already drafted, you're on like pick, 38 or whatever, you just start drafting cornerbacks.
I just start simulating.
I do that too. Everybody left as a cornerback, but you know how it is, man. You got 6 cornerbacks on the field for a dime defense, and all of those guys need a backup. And so, if you're the Cowboys and pick 5 comes up, get a cornerback, man. We can always use another cornerback.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think the Cowboys draft was a lot more about
how much
depth
of it is
than it
that
was
you
flash.
didn't have a first-round draft pick there?
I don't think it was that we didn't have a first round.
But is it having a residual effect on you that you don't have that guy to grab onto and be excited about?
No, I think some of it was like I pointed out in the first round. Like, as Cowboy fans, we have said, and all of us for years now have screamed, why don't we go out and get a safety? And we watch free agent safeties go other places around the league, and yet we still trot out the same mismatched bad news bears bunch back there. And so, when you look at this draft and you see who went right after our pick, like it's not having the first round pick, but then you see these guys as soon as we pick safety, right off the board.
In my opinion,
it's frustrating.
I've said this before. Safety to me has become debatably more important than cornerbacks in today's NFL because the defense lines up so close to the line now. And, let's take a slant route, right? All right, so your middle linebacker, Kyle Van Der Esch, he's not going to recognize a slant right off the bat. He's a 240-pound kid. He's not going to cover, a guy like Deebo Samuel off the slant. Okay? So the cornerback is running with him. If the ball's thrown correctly, the safety has to make a play or it's a touchdown. I mean, it used to be the cornerback could get up, get in the receiver's face, jam him on the line.
Yeah.
That stuff doesn't really happen anymore. And inside of 5 yards, I'm not even sure it's legal to cover receivers anymore.
No, you have to let him go.
So the safety's got to come up and make a play.
Yeah.
Now, I'm with you on that. That would frustrate me too.
Frustrating.
Doesn't frustrate me though. I'm sort of find it delightful.
Whatever. I hope Dwayne. Would you be happy if Dwayne Haskins turns into Byron Leftwich? Because that's my comparison.
He's halfway there already.
That's my comparison. Byron Leftwich. He wears 7, big old guy. Face, kind of looks a little on the chubby side.
He does. He's a little portly.
Yeah. I don't know. Byron Leftwich. Would you be happy with that?
No.
No?
No.
Byron Leftwich was a bad man for a while.
For 3 seasons.
For a little while, he was a bad man.
He was really good. Yeah.
All right. That's it for episode 113.
I want to win the Super Bowl. That's why you play the game, man. I want to win.
Super Bowl. Just stop it, man.
Are you talking about us or y'all?
Stop it.
I mean,
you guys.
Okay.
You guys. January 26, 1992 was a long time ago, my friend. Subscribe to the show however you listen to it. If you can, leave us a review.
So was January 26, 1996.
Well, I don't know exactly what that date is.
What?
You can email the show. Let us know. Do you agree? Do you agree with our take on the draft?
Maybe we for somebody different.
if I've already said if Jason Garrett comes back next year, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. I've said it on the air. I have to do it. Can I what?
Like, can you pass a lie detector on that?
Can I what? Can I walk away from the Cowboys until Jason Garrett's gone?
Until. Okay.
No. Okay. If he comes back next year.
So the Cleveland Browns are going to be like your side chick.
They're going to be my side chick.
You're not committing long term.
Nah, they're going to be my side chick. Now, something happens. Maybe we get maybe we get joined for a little longer, but I'm leaving the Cowboys next year if Jason Garrett comes back.
You say there's a chance the Cleveland Browns have to pee on a stick.
We'll see how long we hang out. That's it. You can email the show. Let us know if you agree or disagree on our draft takes. BG and Tan Man are out. Stay tuned. Episode 114. We're going to be talking NBA playoffs.
Sorry, kids.
Oh, man. This has gone off the rails. Let's just end this thing.
Oh. I almost accidentally moved the Redskins to London on my PlayStation the other day.
Should have. I mean, you want to be realistic, right?